I never imagined I would be fired from TechCorp, especially after so many years of dedication and long hours of work. But there I was, sitting in front of Richard Collins, the company's ruthless CEO, listening to his cold, calculated words. "Jack, I'm sorry to inform you, but we are undergoing a restructuring and, unfortunately, we need to cut some costs. Your position will be eliminated starting today." "Really, Richard? After everything I've done for the company?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Anger and frustration bubbled inside me, but I tried to maintain my composure. "Don't take it personally, Jack. It's just business," he replied, without a hint of remorse. I left there feeling betrayed and devalued. Every project I worked on, every sleepless night, seemed to have been for nothing. But, instead of letting it get me down, I realized that this could be the opportunity one needed. I had the expertise, the passion, and now the motivation to create something bigger and better than TechCorp. I decided to found my own technology company, New Wave Tech. I arrived home still shaken, but determined. My wife, Sarah, was in the kitchen when I entered. "Jack, you're home early." "What happened?" she asked, worried when she saw my expression. "I got fired," I replied, trying to hold back the wave of emotions that threatened to spill over. "Oh, my God. What do you mean? Why?" She dropped everything and came to me, holding my hands. "Richard said it's because of a restructuring. But I know it's personal. He never liked me. But you know what? I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to prove to him and everyone at TechCorp that they made a huge mistake." Sarah looked worried. "Jack, opening a company is risky. What about our financial stability? We have bills to pay, the mortgage." "I know, Sarah. But this is my chance. I have to do this. I can't let Richard get away with it after all." There was a moment of silence. Sarah sighed deeply. "Okay, Jack. If you believe that, I'm with you." Despite Sarah's initial support, I knew she was worried, and that weighed on me. But I needed to move on. I called Emily, my longtime friend and one of the most talented developers I know. "Emily, I need to talk to you. Do you have time?" "Of course, Jack. What's wrong? You seem tense." "I got fired from TechCorp today. So I decided to start my own tech company. And I want you to join me. I know it's risky, but I believe we can create something amazing together." There was a pause before Emily responded. "Wow, Jack. This is unexpected. But you know what? I'm in. I've always believed in your potential. Let's do this." With Emily's support, I began laying out plans for New Wave Tech. I knew the path would be difficult, but I was determined to show the world, and Richard Collins, what I was capable of. Over the next few days, Emily and I gathered in my garage, which would become New Wave Tech's first office. Between stacks of papers, laptops and whiteboards, we began to sketch our ideas and define our goals. "Jack, we have to think big, but also be realistic," Emily said as she scribbled a diagram on the board. "We need funding and a solid team." "I know, Emily. Let's start with what we have and grow from there. I'm confident in our ability to attract investors and talent." Despite the uncertainties and challenges that lay ahead, the idea of building something from scratch gave me a new purpose and new energy. And so, with the determination to prove myself and the hope for a better future, New Wave Tech began to take shape. I decided it was time to start New Wave Tech, Emily, and I started working tirelessly in my garage. From the beginning, we knew it wouldn't be easy. The first challenge was obtaining financing. Without a robust financial history, convincing investors to bet on a startup seemed like an impossible mission. "Jack, we need a more solid business plan if we want anyone to take us seriously," Emily said one morning as we drank coffee at the makeshift table we set up in the garage. "I know, Emily. I'm going to work on it today. We need to show them that our idea is revolutionary, that our artificial intelligence software will change the market," I replied, with determination. We spent hours refining every detail of our business plan. We wanted investors to see the potential of our technology. Finally, we set up a meeting with a small group of angel investors. On the day of the presentation, the tension was palpable. "Emily, do you think we're ready?" I asked nervously. "We're more than ready, Jack. We believe in what we're doing. That's what matters," she replied, giving me an encouraging smile. The presentation went well, but we still couldn't get the full funding. We only got a fraction of what we needed, but we didn't let that discourage us. We continue working on our projects, day and night, driven by passion and belief in our vision. "Jack, maybe we should consider a bank loan. I know it's risky, but it might be our only option right now," Emily suggested as we reviewed our finances. "You're right. We'll try this, but we'll also keep looking for other investors," I agreed. As we struggled to secure more funding, we also faced the challenge of hiring our first employees. We needed people who shared our vision and were willing to work hard, even without a competitive salary at the start. "Emily, I know someone who might be a good fit for the team. He's an old college friend, very talented," I commented. "Great, Jack. Bring him in for an interview and let's see if he's a good fit," she replied. Little by little, we formed a small dedicated team. Each new member brought new skills and perspectives, strengthening our ability to advance the artificial intelligence software we were creating. We worked tirelessly, often late into the night, without weekends or holidays. One night, after another long day of work, Emily and I were sitting in the garage, exhausted but pleased with the progress we had made. "Have you thought about what we'll do when we release our first version?" I asked. "Yes, Jack. Let's prove to everyone, especially Tech Corp, that we can do it. But more importantly, let's create something that really makes a difference in the world of technology," she replied, with a twinkle in her eye. Our efforts began to bear fruit. The first versions of our software showed incredible potential, and interest from potential customers was beginning to emerge. Through it all, the friendship between me and Emily grew stronger and stronger. There were moments when I felt like something more was blossoming between us, something that went beyond our professional partnership. "Emily, have you ever thought about how much we've changed since we started this?" I asked, one quiet night. "Yes, Jack. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. Every challenge, every sleepless night, was worth it," she replied, smiling. That small garage became a place of dreams, challenges and achievements. Each obstacle overcome brought us closer to our goal. New Wave Tech was taking shape, not just as a company, but as an extension of our hopes and aspirations. And so, with every line of code and every decision made, we built the foundation of what would become a revolution in the world of technology. After months of hard work, what started as a dream in my garage was finally taking shape. New Wave Tech was beginning to attract the attention of large customers, many of whom were former Tech Corp partners. It was a mix of satisfaction and nervousness to see that our dedication was paying off. Thanks to our innovative artificial intelligence software, we were catching the attention of companies I never imagined would notice us so soon. One afternoon, while reviewing some reports with Emily in the little office we'd made in the garage, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered with a little hesitation. "Jack Thompson speaking." "Hi, Jack. This is Lauren Matthews from Global Enterprises. I've been hearing great things about New Wave Tech and would like to discuss a possible partnership." My heart raced. Global Enterprises was one of the largest technology companies in the country. I scheduled a meeting for the following week, and when I hung up, Emily gave me an excited look. "Can you believe that, Emily? Global Enterprises wants to discuss a partnership with us." She smiled, sharing my excitement. "That's amazing, Jack. It's confirmation that we're on the right track." The following week, the meeting with Lauren was a success. She was impressed with our project and seemed genuinely interested in working with us. I left the meeting feeling invincible, but at the same time, a shadow of worry hung over me. I knew Richard Collins wouldn't stand idly by when he saw his former partners turning to us. My suspicions were confirmed a few weeks later. we noticed that confidential information was being leaked. Some customers mentioned details that could only have come from within New Wave Tech. I decided to investigate discreetly, but the situation began to affect my sleep and peace of mind. I talked to Emily about it one night, after everyone had left. "Emily, something is wrong. Someone is leaking information." She frowned. "Do you think it could be one of ours?" "Unfortunately, yes. We need to find out who it is, but without arousing suspicion." We decided to monitor everyone's activities carefully. Tense weeks passed until we finally discovered that one of the new employees, Mike, was sending information out. It was not an easy discovery. Mike was always friendly and seemed dedicated. I decided to confront him indirectly. I called him to my office for a chat. "Mike, how are things going? Any difficulties at work?" He seemed a little nervous. "It's okay, Jack. I'm really enjoying working here." "Great. You know, we're very close to closing a big contract, and the security of our information is crucial. We need to be on the lookout for any leaks." He nodded, but I could see the tension on his face. After the conversation, I confirmed my suspicions. I decided that I would not confront him directly, but rather that I would use the situation to my advantage by feeding him false information to confuse Richard. Emily supported me in this decision. "It's risky, Jack, but if it works, we could buy some valuable time." "I know, Emily. It's a dangerous game, but we don't have many options." From there, we began feeding Mike fake data while tightening New Wave Tech security. The tension was palpable, but we knew we had to be smart and patient. Finally, the false information began to take effect. Richard Collins seemed confused, and his actions at Tech Corp showed he was making decisions based on bad data. It was a relief to see that our strategy was working, but we knew the battle was far from over. While all this was happening, we continued to attract more customers and strengthen our position in the market. Experience has taught me that the path to success is full of unexpected challenges, but with the right team and a smart strategy, it is possible to overcome even the most ruthless enemies. When I discovered that one of my own employees was actually a spy sent by Richard Collins, I felt a rush of emotions: anger, frustration, and, most of all, betrayal. I was determined not to let this situation unravel all the hard work my team and I had done thus far. It all started with small signs. We noticed that confidential information about our projects was being leaked, and this began to impact our operations. Emily was the first to raise suspicions. "Jack, something isn't right. How is it possible that Tech Corp is launching a product so similar to ours, and at almost the same time?" she said, frowning as she looked at the market reports. "I know, Emily. I'm also worried. We need to find out how this information is being leaked." I replied, trying to remain calm, but feeling the weight of the situation. I decided to investigate further, carefully reviewing the most recent employees we had hired. That's when I noticed strange behavior from one of our developers, Mark. He always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and his progress reports had inconsistencies. I decided not to confront Mark right away. We needed a strategy to deal with this situation without causing a fuss. I spoke with Emily privately, and together we decided to feed Mark false information. "Emily, we need to play a dangerous game. Let's give Mark false information and see how Collins reacts. If he takes the bait, we will have confirmation that Mark is the spy." I explained my idea, hoping it would work. "It's risky, Jack, but I don't see any other option. We need to protect New Wave Tech. Let's do this." Emily agreed, with determination in her eyes. We agreed to share information about a fictional project, something that seemed realistic, but wasn't in our immediate plans. Little by little, we saw the reactions of Collins and Tech Corp. They started investing resources in a completely wrong direction, based on false information. It worked. Collins landed straight. Emily exclaimed, relieved and satisfied. But that wasn't enough. We needed to make sure Mark couldn't do any more damage. Strengthen New Wave Tech security, implementing new data security measures and activity monitoring. I also started working on a way to unmask Mark without arousing suspicion. I decided to organize a meeting with the entire team to discuss the new security policies. During the meeting, I carefully observed everyone's reactions, especially Mark's. Starting today, we will have new security measures to ensure our projects are protected, I announced, looking directly at Mark, who looked uncomfortable. After the meeting, I called Mark for a private conversation. "Mark, I need to discuss something important with you," he said, trying to maintain a casual tone. He entered my office, visibly nervous. I closed the door and sat at the table, looking directly at him. "Mark, I know what you're doing. I know you're passing information to Collins," he said calmly, observing his reaction. He turned pale and began to stutter. "Jack, I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop it, Mark. We have proof. But you still have a chance to get out of this situation without any major problems," I interrupted, firmly. Mark finally gave in, confessing everything. He was desperate for money and Collins had offered him a significant amount to spy on New Wave Tech. "I'm sorry, Jack. I really feel it," he said, with tears in his eyes. "You're leaving now, Mark. And I never want to see your face again," I replied, without compassion. After Mark left, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It was painful to see how far some people were willing to go for money. But this experience also made me realize the importance of trusting my instincts and protecting the integrity of New Wave Tech at all costs. I talked to Emily about what happened, and she was completely supportive. "Jack, you did what needed to be done. Now we can move forward with even more strength," she said, holding my hand. From that moment on, our determination to make New Wave Tech a company of success and integrity only grew. We knew that many challenges were yet to come, but we were ready to face them together. It was on a rainy afternoon that the dilemma began to take shape. Our team at New Wave Tech was in full swing, working hard to finalize the functionality of our artificial intelligence software. The pressure was enormous, and the need to close new contracts to keep the company's finances up to date was always present. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing some financial reports, when my phone rang. It was a call from an unknown number. I answered, curious. "Jack Thompson speaking," I replied. "Hi Jack. This is Thomas Randall, CEO of Global Innovations. I've heard great things about New Wave Tech and would like to discuss a partnership proposal." Global Innovations was a renowned company in the technology sector, and the possibility of working with them could mean a huge step forward for us. I scheduled a meeting for the next day. In the boardroom, Thomas was all smiles and warm greetings. After some formalities, he got straight to the point. "Jack, we are impressed with the work your team has done. We believe a partnership with New Wave Tech could be extremely beneficial for both sides." I smiled, excited at the prospect. "I also think it would be a great opportunity, Thomas. How do you imagine this partnership?" Thomas leaned forward, changing his tone. "Well, Jack, we know you have a complicated history with Tech Corp. We are willing to offer you a very lucrative contract, something that could solve many of your current financial problems. In return, we would like to get some information about the projects under development at Tech Corp." I was silent for a moment, processing what he was suggesting. "Are you asking me to spy on Tech Corp?" I asked, trying to remain calm. Thomas shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Let's see it as an exchange of information. Nothing very different from what many companies do." My head was racing. The offer was tempting, especially considering our financial difficulties. We could invest more in our technology, hire more developers, and perhaps even accelerate the release of our software. But something inside me said this was wrong. "Thomas, I appreciate the offer, but New Wave Tech was founded on ethical principles. I can't accept that kind of proposal," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Thomas looked surprised, but quickly composed himself. "Think about it, Jack. This is a unique opportunity. I sighed, feeling the weight of the decision. I understand, but my answer is no. I prefer my company to grow in an honest and fair way. After the meeting, I returned to my desk, still shaken by the proposal. Emily, who was working nearby, noticed my expression and came over to me. "Jack, is everything okay?" "You seem worried," she asked, with a worried look on her face. I explained to her about Thomas's proposal and my decision to refuse. Emily smiled and placed her hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Jack. Integrity and ethics are important, and that's what sets New Wave Tech apart from TechCorp." The decision to decline Thomas's offer was not an easy one, but it was an important milestone for me and New Wave Tech. I realized that integrity is not just a nice word, but a daily practice that defines who we are and how we want to be perceived. Choosing to stick to our principles reinforced my determination to build a company based on ethical values, even if it meant facing financial challenges. This choice also strengthened my bond with the team. They saw that I was willing to sacrifice immediate financial gains to maintain the integrity of the company, and this increased trust and respect between us. New Wave Tech continued to grow, not only in terms of business, but also in terms of values and principles, and this made all the difference in our trajectory. From that moment on, it became clear to me that true success is not only measured by profit, but by how we achieve our goals. And I was determined to continue walking this path, no matter how difficult it might be. I remember this tumultuous time at New Wave Tech well, a time when every day felt like a battle and every night, a sacrifice. The pressure was constant, and the responsibility of leading the team towards success often kept me up at night. Emily and I were absolutely determined to make our AI software stand out in the market, but the challenges were immense. The first major barrier we faced was technical. Our algorithm had to be not only innovative, but also efficient and robust. We spent hours on end in front of computers, trying to solve problems that seemed insurmountable. On a particularly difficult night, Emily approached me as I reviewed endless lines of code. "Jack, we need a break," she said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "We've been butting heads here for hours." "I know, Emily, but we're so close to solving this. If we stop now, we might lose the thread," I replied, rubbing my tired eyes. She sighed but agreed. We continued working until the early hours of the morning, and finally, we managed to find the solution to one of the algorithm's main problems. The joy and relief were palpable. However, technical difficulties were only part of the problem. Financially, we were at our limit. Every penny counted, and any mistake could mean the end of our dream. I felt the weight of expectations from every member of the team, especially Emily, who had risked so much to be by my side. "Jack, we need to find a way to cut costs without compromising quality," she suggested during a tense meeting. "I know, Emily. But where? We are already operating at the minimum necessary. Maybe we can renegotiate some contracts or look for more investors, but that will take time," I replied, trying to remain calm. At that time, our personal lives practically did not exist. Nights and weekends were dedicated exclusively to work. I could see how much this was affecting us, especially Emily and I, who were beginning to grow closer in ways that went beyond friendship. On one of the few nights we managed to leave the office before midnight, we went to a nearby cafe to try and relax a little. "You know, Jack, sometimes I wonder if all this sacrifice is worth it," she said, absently stirring her coffee cup. "Me too, Emily. But when I think about what we're building and the impact it can have, I feel like we're on the right track," I replied, trying to find the right words. She smiled, a tired but hopeful smile. "I believe in us. And I believe in you." These words were a balm for me. Despite all the difficulties, we knew we were doing something great. After months of hard work, twists and turns, and sleepless nights, we were finally able to release the beta version of our software. It was a moment of euphoria and relief. We organized a small celebration at the office, something simple but meaningful. "We achieved!" Emily exclaimed, raising an improvised glass of champagne and soda. "Yes, we did it," I replied, feeling a surge of gratitude and pride. The beta was an early success, attracting valuable interest and feedback from our early users. But we knew this was just the beginning. Challenges were still to come, but we were more united and determined than ever. The pressure hasn't eased, but confidence in our ability to innovate and overcome obstacles has grown. And most of all, the relationship between Emily and I has deepened, built on mutual trust and a shared determination to build New Wave Tech into something extraordinary. This phase taught us a lot about resilience, perseverance, and the true meaning of partnership. And even though we were just getting started, we knew that together we could face any challenge that lay ahead. When the success of our artificial intelligence software began to attract even more customers, New Wave Tech finally began to overtake Tech Corp in the market. Of course, this didn't go unnoticed by Richard Collins. In a desperate move, he decided to sue me for intellectual property infringement, claiming that I had stolen ideas from Tech Corp. I clearly remember the moment I received the notification. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing some progress reports, when Emily entered the room with a serious expression on her face. "Jack, we need to talk," she said, holding up an envelope with the Collins Law Firm logo on it. "What is that?" I asked, already feeling a knot in my stomach. "Richard Collins is suing us," she replied, handing me the envelope. I opened the envelope and started reading the notification. Collins was claiming that our software was a direct copy of a technology one had worked on while at Tech Corp. I knew this was a blatant lie, but proving it in court would be another story. "He's desperate," I murmured, clutching the paper in my hands. "He knows we're winning." "We need a good lawyer, Jack," Emily said, sitting next to me. "Someone who can defend us and prove that everything we did was developed independently." We decided to hire one of the best intellectual property lawyers in the country, Dr. Carlos Mendez. He had a reputation for being ruthless and fair, just what we needed. In the days that followed, our legal team worked tirelessly to gather all the evidence needed to prove that our software was genuine. We gathered documents, emails, and even statements from former Tech Corp colleagues who were willing to testify on our behalf. Judgment Day has finally arrived. The court was full, with journalists and onlookers eager to see the confrontation between New Wave Tech and the giant Tech Corp. I felt nervous but determined. Emily was by my side, holding my hand and offering support. The trial began with Collins' statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what we have here is a clear case of intellectual property theft," Collins said, his voice cold and calculating. "Mr. Thompson used insider information from Tech Corp to develop his software. He betrayed my trust and the trust of our company." When it was our turn, Dr. Mendez stood up and began to present our evidence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Collins' allegations could not be further from the truth. Mr. Thompson developed his software independently, based on his own ideas and experiences. We have documentary and testimonial evidence that confirms this." During the trial, dark secrets about Collins began to surface. We discovered that he had committed numerous irregularities during his tenure at Tech Corp, including manipulating data and intimidating employees to achieve his goals. These revelations significantly weakened his position. One of the key witnesses was Sarah, a former Tech Corp colleague who had worked with me on several projects. "Jack has always been an ethical and dedicated professional," said Sarah in her testimony. "He would never use Tech Corp information for his own benefit. I was there when he had the initial idea for the software that New Wave Tech developed. It was all his credit." When it came time for my closing statement, I stood up and looked directly at Collins. "Mr. Collins, I dedicated years of my life to Tech Corp, believing we were building something great together. But you betrayed me and now you try to destroy everything I built with my own integrity and effort. I didn't steal your ideas. I have created something new, something better, and I will not allow you to take that away from me." The silence in the courtroom was palpable. Finally, after exhausting days of arguments and counter-arguments, the jury returned its verdict, "Not guilty." I proved that our ideas were original and that Collins had no right to them. Although this victory was a huge relief, I knew that the real battle was not over yet. Tech Corp was weakened, but still a threat. However, this experience strengthened me and made me realize that no matter the challenges, integrity and perseverance would always prevail. After months of intense battles and a lot of dedication, New Wave Tech finally began to show its true potential. However, an uneasiness began to grow within me. I realized that my initial goal, to surpass Tech Corp and, in a way, get revenge on Richard Collins, no longer felt as essential as it had before. Something deeper was calling me. It was at that moment that I began to redefine what success meant for me and for New Wave Tech. One day I was sitting in my office, reviewing some performance reports, when Emily walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You seem thoughtful, Jack. All good?" "Yes, I'm just reflecting," I replied, accepting the cup. "You know, Emily, when we started this, all I wanted was to show Tech Corp and Collins what I was capable of. But now, it seems that this is not enough." She sat on the chair in front of my desk, with a curious look on her face. "What do you mean?" "New Wave has been growing rapidly, and we are taking over the market, but I feel like we can do more than just profit and compete. I started thinking about how we can really make a difference, not just in the industry, but also in the lives of the people who work here and in society as a whole." Emily smiled, her eyes shining with the same passion I felt. "I totally agree. From the beginning, we always wanted to create something different, something that went beyond the simple search for profit." "What do you have in mind?" "Well," I began to explain, "I've been thinking about creating a work environment that is truly healthy and inclusive. I want everyone here to feel like they are part of something bigger, that their work is valued and that they have space to grow and develop. And more than that, I want New Wave to invest in social and sustainable projects. We can use our technology to solve real problems, such as education, healthcare, and the environment." Emily nodded vigorously. "That would be amazing, Jack. I have always admired his vision and integrity. I think this is the right direction for New Wave Tech." With Emily's support, I began implementing significant changes within the company. We create well-being programs for employees, including flexible schedules, psychological support, and recreational activities. We also launch diversity and inclusion initiatives to ensure everyone, regardless of their background, had the same opportunities for growth. Additionally, we establish partnerships with NGOs and community projects, using our artificial intelligence technology to help in areas such as education in underserved communities and environmental monitoring. We started investing in sustainable startups, fostering innovation in areas that could have a positive impact on the world. These changes began to reflect not only on the work environment, but also on the external perception of New Wave Tech. Customers and partners began to see us as an ethical company committed to social well-being, which generated a wave of support and new business opportunities. During a break, Emily and I were walking through the park near the office, something we started doing regularly to clear our heads and discuss ideas. "You know, Emily," he said, looking up at the blue sky, "I never imagined we'd get this far. And more than that, I never imagined we would redefine what it means to be successful." She intertwined her hand with mine, a gesture that had become natural between us, reflecting the depth of our relationship that had blossomed over time. "Jack, you've turned New Wave Tech into not just a successful company, but a force for good. I'm proud to be part of this and to be by your side." I smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude. "And I'm lucky to have you with me, Emily. Together, we can continue to make a difference." With those words, I realized that true success wasn't just about outperforming Tech Corp or making a profit, but about creating something meaningful, something that could positively impact people's lives and the world around us. And that's how we redefined the concept of success at New Wave Tech, transforming it into a company that not only competed in the market, but also contributed to a better future. After months of tension and preparation, the trial was finally reaching its climax. I clearly remember the nervousness I felt on the morning of the last day of the hearing. The legal battle against Tech Corp had been exhausting, not just for me, but for the entire New Wave Tech team. However, the determination to prove that our ideas were original and that Tech Corp had no claim on them kept us going. That morning, I was in the office, going over the last details with our lawyer, Mr. Martins. The phone rang, and it was Emily. "Jack, are we ready?" she asked, her voice showing a mixture of anxiety and hope. "We are, Emily. Let's show everyone that New Wave Tech is the result of our hard work and dedication," I replied, trying to convey confidence. We arrived at the courthouse, and I could feel the weight of expectations in the air. On the other side of the room, Richard Collins sat, his face cold and calculating. He had been a relentless opponent, and he knew that losing this battle could mean the end of his career. The lawyer's closing arguments were intense. Mr. Martins presented compelling evidence that the development of our artificial intelligence software was completely independent, highlighting every innovation and progress we have made over the months. On the other hand, Collins' lawyers tried to discredit our work, claiming that I had stolen ideas during my time at TechCorp. However, the turning point came when we were able to present a compromising email from Collins where he instructed his subordinates to infiltrate a spy into New Wave Tech. This document not only proved Collins' bad faith, but also collapsed his credibility with the judge and jury. After a brief deliberation, the judge returned with the verdict. Everyone in the room held their breath. After considering all the evidence presented, the court finds that New Wave Tech did not infringe any TechCorp patents. The accusations of intellectual property infringement are unfounded, and TechCorp is ordered to pay all legal costs, announced the judge. The room erupted in murmurs. I looked at Emily, who had tears of joy in her eyes. I couldn't contain my own emotion and hugged her tightly. "We did it, Emily. We achieved," he said, his voice breaking. Richard Collins, on the other hand, was visibly dejected. The victory not only strengthened New Wave Tech's position in the market, but also demoralizes Collins, whose reputation was seriously damaged by the revelations during the trial. That night we organized a small celebration at the office. The team was elated, everyone knew how much this victory meant for the company and for each of us. During the celebration, I gave a short speech. "Guys, this victory belongs to all of us. Every line of code, every sleepless night, every challenge overcome has brought us here. Today we prove that we are more than a technology company, we are a family united by a common dream. And this is just the beginning. We will continue to innovate, maintaining our values and building a better future." Emily approached with a glass of champagne and smiled. "Jack, I'm so proud of you. I knew we could do this together. And I couldn't have done it without you, Emily," I replied, holding his hand. We knew that the real battle was not over yet. Victory in court was an important step, but the road ahead was still full of challenges. However, at that moment, we felt that we could face anything, as long as we were together and committed to our principles. That night was a milestone, not only in the history of New Wave Tech, but also in my life. It was the beginning of a new era, where integrity, innovation and teamwork would be the foundations on which we would build our legacy. When I received a proposal from a group of investors to acquire TechCorp, I confess that I was astonished. The idea of becoming the CEO of the company that fired me so unfairly was an irony of fate that I hadn't expected. For days, I reflected on the proposal, weighing the pros and cons. Emily was a constant presence by my side, offering advice and unconditional support. "Jack, do you really want to do this?" she asked one night as we sat in New Wave Tech's small conference room, now much larger and fancier than when we started in my garage. "I don't know, Emily. Part of me wants to transform TechCorp, prove that I can do better, but another part of me worries that this is a mistake. Am I letting revenge get the better of me?" She held my hand and looked deeply into my eyes. "Jack, you've always done everything with integrity. If you decide to accept this offer, do it for the right reasons. Make TechCorp the company you always wanted it to be. And don't forget who you are." These words resonated with me. I decided to accept the offer, not for revenge, but for the opportunity to reform an organization that had so much underutilized potential. When the news was released, the impact was immediate. Richard Collins was forced to resign, and I took over as CEO of TechCorp. On my first day as CEO, I stood in front of the large TechCorp building, feeling a mix of nostalgia and determination. I entered the meeting room, where a team of executives was waiting for me. The tension was palpable. "Good morning, everyone," I began, taking in the eager faces around the table. "I know many of you have questions about this change, and I want to be transparent. My goal here is to transform TechCorp into a company based on ethical values, innovation, and respect for employees. I know change can be difficult, but I believe that together we can build something better." One of the executives, an older man named Thomas, raised his hand. "Jack, with all due respect, why should we believe you can do this? You got fired from here." I took a deep breath before responding. "You should believe it because I've done it before. New Wave Tech is proof that companies can be successful without compromising their principles. And I'll do the same here." Restructuring TechCorp was a monumental challenge. I needed to deal with an entrenched corporate culture and internal resistance, but little by little I began to implement significant changes. I introduced more inclusive policies, employee development programs, and a more transparent approach to decision-making. In a meeting with employees, I reiterated my commitment. I want everyone to know that their voices will be heard. We are here to build a better future, together. Meanwhile, Richard Collins, now demoralized and powerless, watched from afar as the company he once led with an iron fist transformed. His fall was a powerful reminder that ruthless actions and lack of ethics have consequences. The following months were full of hard work, but also full of great achievements. TechCorp began to regain its reputation in the market, and New Wave Tech continued to grow under the leadership of Emily, who took over as interim CEO. Our personal relationship blossomed even further, becoming a solid foundation amidst the challenges. A year after taking over TechCorp, I organized an event to celebrate the achievements of both companies. I looked at the audience, made up of employees from both companies, and felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. Today, we celebrate not just financial success, but the triumph of values and integrity. The journey has been difficult, but we have proven that it is possible to lead with ethics and respect. And that is the true reward. Applause filled the room, and I knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter. TechCorp and New Wave Tech, now under my leadership, were living examples that integrity and perseverance always prevail.